The autumn wind swept through Maple Street with an unsettling persistence that evening, carrying with it the scent of rotting leaves and something else, something I couldn't quite place. I had lived at 47 Maple Street for 3 years, long enough to know the rhythm of the neighborhood. Mrs. Patterson's wind chimes at number 43, the Johnson twins racing their bikes before dinner, and the distant hum of traffic from the highway beyond the tree line. But I had never heard anything like the sound that stopped me dead in my tracks that Thursday night. It was past 10 o'clock. I had just taken the trash out to the curb, my breath forming small clouds in the cold October air, when I heard it, a muffled crying, thin and desperate, like the sound of someone who had been weeping for hours. At first, I thought it might be an animal, perhaps a cat caught in someone's shed. But as I stood there, my hand still gripping the plastic bin, I realized the sound was too deliberate, too human. The crying was coming from my neighbor's garage. Number 49. Maple Street belonged to Marcus Reed, a man I had exchanged perhaps a dozen words with in 3 years. He was a quiet, solitary figure in his late 40s, always dressed in dark colors, always keeping to himself. I would see him leaving for work in the early morning, his face expressionless as he backed his silver sedan down the driveway. He would return late in the evening, sometimes carrying grocery bags, sometimes empty-handed, but always alone. His garage was a hulking structure larger than most on our street, with a rolling door that I had never seen fully open. There were no windows, just solid walls of weathered wood painted a dull gray that seemed to absorb the streetlight rather than reflect it. Sometimes, late at night, I would notice a faint glow seeping from beneath the door, suggesting he spent his evenings out there doing what? I had never given it much thought until now. The crying continued, rising and falling in waves of desperation. I stood frozen on my driveway, every rational part of my brain telling me to go back inside, to mind my own business, to call the police if I was really concerned. But something held me there. A mixture of curiosity, concern, and a nagging sense that if I walked away now, I would regret it for the rest of my life. I thought about Marcus Reed. In 3 years, I had never seen anyone visit him. No friends stopping by for barbecues, no family members at holidays, no romantic partners. Just Marcus alone in his house with his garage and whatever secrets he kept there. There was something unsettling about his isolation, something that made the crying from his garage feel even more sinister. The neighborhood was quiet except for that sound. The Johnsons' house was dark, the twins long since in bed. Mrs. Patterson's wind chimes hung silent in the still air. Even the dogs that usually barked at every passing car were quiet tonight. It was as if the entire street was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do. I should call the police, I thought. That was the smart, safe, reasonable thing to do. Let the professionals handle it. But what would I tell them? That I heard crying from my neighbor's garage? They would ask me questions I couldn't answer. Was I sure it was human? Could I see anything? Was there any sign of immediate danger? And while I fumbled through explanations, while they decided whether to send a car, while they drove across town, whatever was happening in that garage would continue. The crying became more urgent, almost frantic, and I made my decision. I would investigate. Just a quick look, just enough to understand what was happening. If I saw something truly wrong, then I would call the police with concrete information. If it turned out to be nothing, a television perhaps, or some strange hobby of Marcus's, then I would retreat to my house and forget the whole thing. I crossed the invisible boundary between my property and his, my footsteps silent on the frost-covered grass. The closer I got to the garage, the louder the crying became, and with it came the certainty that I was making either the bravest or the most foolish decision of my life. The garage door loomed before me, and I reached out my hand, not yet knowing that what I would discover would change everything, not just for me, but for everyone on Maple Street. Chapter 1. The Approach. The distance between my driveway and Marcus Reed's garage couldn't have been more than 50 feet, but crossing it felt like traversing miles. Each step brought me closer to the source of that desperate crying, and with each step, my heart hammered harder against my ribs. The cold air burned my lungs as I tried to control my breathing, tried to stay quiet, tried to convince myself this was the right thing to do. The grass crunched beneath my feet despite my efforts at stealth. I froze mid-step, certain that the sound would alert Marcus, that lights would flare on and he would appear at his back door demanding to know what I was doing on his property at this hour. But the house remained dark, its windows like dead eyes staring out at nothing. The crying continued unabated, a raw, broken sound that made my stomach clench with sympathetic anguish. It was definitely human now that I was closer, definitely real. A woman's voice, I thought, though it was hard to be certain through the muffled quality of the sound. Whoever was in there was in genuine distress. I reached the side of the garage and pressed myself against the rough wooden wall, my breath coming in short gasps. The paint was peeling under my fingertips, revealing older layers beneath. Green, then white, then what looked like the original natural wood. How long had this structure been here? What had it witnessed over the decades? There was a small window about 7 feet up on the side wall facing away from the street. I hadn't noticed it before in all my years of living next door, probably because this side of the garage was shrouded in shadow most of the day, hidden behind an overgrown lilac bush that Marcus never seemed to trim. The window was dirty, covered in years of grime and cobwebs, but there was a faint light coming from behind it. I needed to see inside. I needed to know what was happening before I made my next move. The logical part of my brain screamed that I was trespassing, that I could be arrested, that I should leave immediately. But the crying was so desperate, so full of pain and fear that turning back felt impossible. I looked around for something to stand on. Near the back corner of the garage, partially hidden by dead leaves, I spotted an old milk crate, the plastic kind that used to be ubiquitous behind grocery stores. I grabbed it as quietly as I could and positioned it beneath the window, testing its stability with 1 foot before committing my full weight. It held. Barely. I gripped the windowsill and pulled myself up, my face level with the grimy glass. For a moment I couldn't make out anything through the accumulated dirt and the darkness beyond. I wiped at the glass with my sleeve, clearing a small circle, and pressed my face closer. What I saw made my blood run cold. Chapter 2. What I saw. The interior of the garage was nothing like I expected. Instead of the usual clutter of tools, boxes, and forgotten belongings, the space had been transformed into something else entirely, something organized and intentional and deeply wrong. The lighting came from several work lamps positioned around the space, creating harsh pools of brightness and deep shadows. The concrete floor was spotlessly clean, almost gleaming, with a drain in the center that made my mind conjure terrible possibilities. Along one wall, a workbench held an array of tools arranged with meticulous precision, but these weren't ordinary tools. Even through the dirty window, I could see restraints, medical instruments, things I couldn't identify but that filled me with dread. And there, in the center of it all, was a metal chair bolted to the floor. Someone was sitting in it. I had to blink several times, wipe the window again, make sure I was really seeing what I thought I was seeing. A woman, young, maybe early 20s, was bound to the chair with what looked like zip ties. Her hair hung in tangled strands across her face. Her clothes were torn and dirty, and even from this distance I could see the way her shoulders shook with sobs. She was alone in the garage. Marcus was nowhere to be seen. My first instinct was to shout, to let her know someone had found her, that help was coming, but I caught myself just in time. If Marcus was in the house, if he heard me, what would he do? Would he run? Would he hurt her? Would he try to hurt me? I needed to be smart about this. The woman's head suddenly lifted, as if she had sensed my presence. Her face came into view, pale, streaked with tears and dirt, her eyes wild with terror and something else. Hope? She couldn't possibly see me up here in the darkness, could she? But her eyes seemed to fix on the window, on my hiding spot, and her mouth opened. She was trying to speak, but I couldn't hear her words. The crying had stopped, replaced by what looked like desperate pleas. She was mouthing something over and over again, and I pressed closer to the window, trying to read her lips. "Help me." No, that wasn't it. "Get out." Still wrong. Then I understood, and my entire body went rigid with a new kind of fear. "Behind you." I spun around on the unstable milk crate, nearly falling, and found myself face to face with Marcus Reed. He was standing less than 3 feet away, illuminated by the security light from his back porch. He wasn't holding a weapon, wasn't making any threatening moves, but the look in his eyes, cold, calculating, completely devoid of surprise, told me he had known I was here all along. "I was wondering when someone would finally notice," he said calmly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I suppose it was inevitable. She's been getting louder lately." Chapter 3. The confrontation time seemed to slow down, each second stretching into an eternity as Marcus and I stared at each other. My mind raced through options: run, fight, scream, try to reason with him, but my body remained frozen on that precarious milk crate, my back pressed against the garage wall, my only escape route blocked by this man I had barely known existed until this moment. Marcus took a step closer, and I finally found my voice. "I've called the police," I lied, my words coming out in a rush. "They're on their way right now. They know I'm here. If you touch me..." He held up a hand, cutting me off. "No, you haven't. Your phone is in your pocket. I can see the outline. You came over here alone without telling anyone because you wanted to be the hero." His lips curved into something that might have been a smile but contained no warmth whatsoever. People always think they'll be the hero. My hand instinctively went to my pocket, confirming what he already knew. My phone was there, but I hadn't used it. I hadn't called anyone. I had been stupid and impulsive, and now I was going to pay for it. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, though my voice shook. Marcus tilted his head, studying me like I was an interesting specimen under a microscope. "That's an interesting question. What do any of us want? Safety, privacy, the freedom to live our lives without interference." He paused. "You've complicated things, you know. I had a system, it was working perfectly. And now you're here and decisions have to be made." Behind me, through the wall, I could hear the woman in the garage starting to cry again, but softer now, as if she had lost all hope. "You can't possibly think you'll get away with this," I said, trying to keep him talking, trying to buy time to think. "People will notice. They'll ask questions. You can't just..." "Can't just what?" Marcus interrupted. "Keep someone in my garage? I've been doing exactly that for 6 months now, and you're the first person to notice. You're the first person to care enough to investigate a strange sound in the night." He gestured around at the dark houses surrounding us. "Look at this neighborhood. Everyone's so wrapped up in their own lives, their own problems. Mrs. Patterson with her wind chimes and her wine. The Johnsons with their twins. You, whoever you are, I don't even know your name despite living next to you for years." "It's David," I said automatically, then immediately regretted giving him any personal information. "David." He seemed to taste the name. "Well, David, you've created quite a problem for both of us. You see, I don't particularly want to hurt you. This whole situation isn't about hurting people, it's about something else entirely. But I also can't let you leave here and call the police." I felt my hand sliding toward my pocket, toward my phone. Marcus noticed immediately. "Don't." His voice was sharp now, dangerous. "If you reach for that phone, this conversation ends very differently than either of us would like." Chapter 4. The Story. I froze, my hand inches from my pocket. Marcus was watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl, waiting to see if I would challenge him, if I would force him to act. Instead, I did the only thing I could think of. I tried to understand. "Why?" I asked. "Why are you doing this? Who is she?" Something flickered across Marcus's face. Surprise, maybe, that I was asking questions instead of trying to run or fight. He glanced back toward his house, then toward the garage, as if calculating something. "Her name is Rachel," he said finally. "Rachel Montgomery. She was a student at the community college, worked part-time at the coffee shop on Main Street, 23 years old, no close family, few friends. The kind of person who could disappear and no one would look too hard." The casual way he described her made my stomach turn. "So you kidnapped her? You're keeping her prisoner in your garage. It's not what you think," Marcus interrupted, his voice taking on a strange quality, defensive, almost pleading. "I'm not a monster, David. I never hurt her, never touched her inappropriately. I've fed her, given her water, even books to read. I've treated her better than most people treat their pets. You've kept her chained to a chair in a garage." I couldn't help the outrage in my voice. "How is that not monstrous?" Marcus's expression hardened. "Because you don't understand what she is, what she did, what she deserves." He took another step closer and I pressed myself harder against the garage wall. 6 months ago, Rachel Montgomery was driving home from a party. She was drunk, texting on her phone, going 20 miles over the speed limit down Riverside Road. She never even saw the car she hit. My heart sank as I began to understand where this was going. "My daughter was in that car," Marcus continued, his voice hollow now, drained of emotion. "Emma. She was 16 years old, driving back from her violin lesson. She died on impact. And Rachel Montgomery? She got a slap on the wrist. 6 months probation, community service, a suspended license. Because she was young, because she showed remorse, because she had her whole life ahead of her." The wind picked up, rustling the dead leaves around our feet. Inside the garage, Rachel's crying had stopped. I wondered if she could hear us, if she knew her captor was explaining her presence to a stranger who might be her last chance at freedom. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "I'm truly sorry for your loss. But this isn't justice, Marcus. This is exactly justice." He cut me off, his voice sharp again. "Real justice. The kind our system is too weak to deliver. She took my daughter's life, so I took her freedom. Fair trade, don't you think?" Chapter 5. The Choice. The night air felt thick with tension as Marcus's words hung between us. I could see the pain in his eyes now, the grief that had twisted into something dark and unforgiving. Part of me, a small human part, understood his anguish. But understanding wasn't acceptance. "Marcus, listen to me," I said, trying to keep my voice calm and reasonable. "I understand you're hurting, losing a child. I can't even imagine that pain. But Rachel didn't deliberately kill Emma. It was an accident, a terrible, tragic accident. What you're doing now won't bring your daughter back." His jaw clenched. Don't you dare tell me this won't bring Emma back. I know she's gone. I know nothing will change that. But at least this way, Rachel understands consequences, real consequences. She sits in that garage every day thinking about what she did, regretting it, living with it the way I have to live with my daughter being dead. She's terrified," I said. "That's not the same as understanding. That's torture, Marcus. You're torturing her." "Good." The word came out harsh, almost vicious. She should be terrified. Emma was terrified in those last seconds before impact. Emma died alone and afraid, and Rachel Montgomery walked away with barely a scratch. Where's the justice in that? I realized that reasoning wasn't going to work. Marcus had spent 6 months justifying this to himself, building a framework of logic around his actions that no amount of moral argument would penetrate. I needed a different approach. "What happens now?" I asked. "You've told me everything. You know I know. Are you going to put me in there with her? Keep us both locked up? How long can you maintain this, Marcus? How long before it all falls apart?" He studied me for a long moment, and I could see him calculating, weighing options. "I've been asking myself the same question since I saw you standing on that milk crate," he admitted. I could let you go, trust that you'll keep quiet, but we both know you'll call the police the second you're back in your house. Yes, I said honestly. I will. Because that woman in there doesn't deserve what you're doing to her, and you know it. Deep down, you know this is wrong. Do I? Marcus asked, and for the first time I heard uncertainty in his voice. Sometimes I'm not sure what's right anymore. The line between justice and revenge, it's thinner than you'd think. I cross it every day, go back and forth, wondering if Emma would be proud of me or ashamed. This was my opening. What would Emma want, Marcus? Really think about it. Would she want you to destroy your life and someone else's over an accident? Would she want her father to become a criminal, to spend the rest of his life in prison? His expression shifted, pain and doubt warring across his features. Chapter 6. The truth deepens. You don't know anything about Emma, Marcus said, but the fire had gone out of his voice. He sounded tired now, defeated. You didn't know her. You're right, I acknowledged. But I know she was 16. I know she played violin. I know her father loved her enough to throw away everything for revenge. Tell me about her, Marcus. Help me understand. He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then slowly, he reached into his pocket. I tensed, ready to run, but he only pulled out a wallet. From it, he extracted a photograph worn at the edges from constant handling and held it where I could see in the dim light. A teenage girl smiled at the camera, her dark hair pulled back, a violin case visible in the background. She had Marcus's eyes, or rather, he had hers. Kind eyes, intelligent, full of life that had been stolen away. She wanted to study music at Berkeley, Marcus said softly. Had already been accepted on a scholarship. She was going to leave for California in the fall. He stared at the photo. Instead, I buried her in spring. 17 years old. She never even got to graduate high school. My throat tightened. I'm truly sorry. Rachel Montgomery finished her community service 3 weeks ago, Marcus continued, still looking at the photograph. Went right back to her life like nothing happened. Posted photos on social media of herself at parties, clubs, beaches. Smiling, laughing, living, while my daughter is in the ground. So you took her, I said quietly. Marcus nodded slowly. I followed her for weeks, learned her patterns. She was so careless, so oblivious. Left work late at night, walked to her car alone through empty parking lots, never looked over her shoulder. It was almost insulting how easy it was. And you brought her here, to your garage. I'd been preparing it for months, he admitted. Soundproofing, restraints, supplies. I'd thought it all through. The plan was to keep her for a year, the same amount of time Emma had left before college. 1 year of captivity for 1 year of life stolen. It seemed balanced. The word hung in the air, balanced, as if kidnapping and false imprisonment could ever balance the scales of tragedy. How much longer? I asked. How much longer were you planning to keep her? Marcus checked his watch, an automatic gesture that seemed absurd given the circumstances. 3 more months. Then I was going to let her go, drop her somewhere far from here, start over in a different state. You really think you could just let her go? I challenged. She knows what you look like, knows where you live. The second you released her, she'd go to the police. I'd thought about that, Marcus said. I had plans, but now, he gestured at me. Now everything's more complicated. Inside the garage, we could hear movement, the scrape of the metal chair against concrete, Rachel shifting position. How long had she been sitting there, listening to us talk about her like she was a problem to be solved rather than a person? Chapter 7. The Witness. I want to talk to her, I said suddenly. The words came out before I'd fully formed the thought, but once spoken, I knew it was the right move. Rachel, I want to hear her side of this. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Why? Because right now she's just a concept to me, a voice crying in the dark. If I'm going to make any decision about what happens next, I need to understand the full situation, both sides. I could see Marcus weighing this, trying to determine if it was a trick, if I was just looking for an opportunity to free her or signal for help. Finally, he nodded. Fine, but I'll be with you the entire time. And David, his voice hardened. If you try anything, if you make any move I don't like, you'll regret it. Do you understand? I nodded, my heart pounding. This was dangerous, but it was also possibly my only chance to end this peacefully. Marcus led me around to the front of the garage. He pulled out a key ring and unlocked 3 different locks on the door, deadbolts that had been added recently, judging by the fresh wood around them. The door swung open and fluorescent light spilled out into the night. Rachel's head snapped up as we entered. Up close, she looked even worse than she had through the window, gaunt, exhausted, her wrists raw from the zip ties. When she saw me, a stranger, hope flared in her eyes for just a moment before dying when she realized I was with Marcus. Rachel, Marcus said, his voice almost gentle, this is David. He's our neighbor. He heard you crying. Please, Rachel's voice was hoarse from crying, barely above a whisper. Please help me. He's insane. He's kept me here for months. I don't know. I can't. Please. Tears streamed down her face. I stepped closer, hyper-aware of Marcus watching my every move. Rachel, I know about Emma, about the accident. Her face crumpled. I know. I know what I did. I think about it every single day. I would give anything, to go back and change that night. But I can't. And this. She gestured at her restraints, at the garage around us. This isn't going to bring her back. This is just creating more victims. Tell him, Marcus said from behind me, his voice tight. Tell him what you told the judge at your sentencing. Rachel's eyes closed. I said I was sorry. I said it was the biggest mistake of my life. You said it was just an accident, Marcus corrected, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. You said these things happen and asked for leniency because you were young. I was 22 years old, Rachel cried. I was terrified, in shock. I didn't know what to say. My lawyer told me. She stopped, shaking her head. It doesn't matter. Nothing I said mattered. Nothing I could say would bring that girl back. Chapter 8. The Breaking Point. The 3 of us stood there in the harsh fluorescent light, a tableau of tragedy and impossible choices. I could feel the weight of the moment, the sense that whatever happened next would determine all of our fates. Marcus, I said carefully, you need to let her go. I can't. His voice was flat. I've come too far. If I let her go now, I go to prison. Everything I've done, all of this, becomes meaningless. It's already meaningless, I argued. Can't you see that? Emma is still dead. Rachel being here doesn't change that. And when this comes out, and it will come out eventually, Emma's memory will be forever tied to this. Is that what you want? For people to remember your daughter's death in connection with a kidnapping? Something in Marcus's expression shifted. I'd struck a nerve. He's right, Rachel said quietly. Mr. Reed, I know you hate me. I understand why, but your daughter, she was a musician, right? An artist. Artists believe in redemption, in second chances. Would Emma want her father to become this person? Would she want this to be her legacy? Don't you dare, Marcus's voice cracked. Don't you dare tell me what my daughter would want. You don't get to speak about her. You killed her. I know. Rachel's voice rose for the first time, filled with anguish. I know what I did. I live with it every single second of every single day. I see her face every time I close my eyes. I hear the sound of the impact in my nightmares. I will never, ever forgive myself for that night. But keeping me here, torturing me, destroying your own life, it won't heal your pain. It will just create more pain." Marcus's face was wet with tears now, his carefully maintained composure finally cracking. "I don't know how to let go," he whispered. This anger, this need for revenge, it's the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely. If I let her go, if I forgive her, then what? I just go back to my empty house and my empty life and accept that my daughter is dead and the person responsible got away with it? I moved closer to Marcus carefully, keeping my hands visible. "You'll never accept it," I said gently. "You'll never stop missing Emma. But you can choose to honor her memory in a different way. You can choose to be the father she would be proud of, even in your grief. This," I gestured around the garage, "this isn't it." Marcus looked at Rachel, really looked at her, maybe for the first time since he'd brought her here. Saw not just the person who'd killed his daughter, but a young woman who was also a victim now, whose life had also been destroyed by one terrible decision. "I don't know if I can," he said. "Yes, you can," Rachel said. "Mr. Reed, if you let me go, I promise. I will spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. I'll advocate for stricter drunk driving laws. I'll speak at schools about the consequences. I'll dedicate my life to preventing other families from experiencing what you've gone through. Let me turn this tragedy into something meaningful." Chapter 9. The Decision. The silence that followed Rachel's words seemed to stretch endlessly. Marcus stood with his head bowed, his whole body shaking. I could see the war being waged inside him, years of grief and rage battling against the faint, fragile possibility of something resembling peace. "If I let you go," Marcus said finally, his voice barely audible, "I go to prison. You understand that, don't you? Both of you. The moment Rachel is free, the police come, and everything I have left, my freedom, my home, any chance of a normal life, it all ends." I couldn't lie to him. "Yes, that's probably true. What you've done is serious, Marcus. There will be consequences." "But," Rachel interjected, her voice stronger now, "I can tell them the truth. That you never hurt me, that you were grieving, that you need help, not just punishment. I can advocate for mental health treatment instead of maximum sentencing. I can," she paused, seeming to gather courage, "I can explain to them that I understand why you did this, even if it was wrong." Marcus looked up at her, surprise evident on his face. "Why would you do that after everything I've put you through?" "Because hatred and revenge just create more hatred and revenge," Rachel said. "That cycle has to stop somewhere. Maybe it stops here with us, with me choosing compassion instead of anger." Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "And because I meant what I said, I want to make this right. I want to honor Emma's memory by being better, by doing better." I watched Marcus's face as he processed this, saw something fundamental shift in his expression. The hard, cold shell he'd built around himself was cracking, and underneath it was just a broken father who missed his daughter. "I've been so angry for so long," he whispered. "I forgot what anything else felt like." "I know," I said softly. "But anger doesn't have to be the only thing. It can make room for other things too. Grief, yes, but also healing, eventually." Marcus walked slowly toward Rachel's chair. She tensed, uncertain of his intentions, but he simply knelt down in front of her. From his pocket, he pulled out a utility knife and carefully cut through the zip ties binding her wrists and ankles. Rachel gasped as the circulation returned to her hands, rubbing her raw wrists. For a moment she just sat there, as if unable to believe she was really free. Then, slowly, she stood on shaky legs. She could have run. The garage door was open. The street was right there. Safety was just a few dozen yards away. But instead, Rachel did something I never expected. She placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry about Emma. I will be sorry for the rest of my life." Marcus's composure finally shattered completely. He buried his face in his hands and wept, deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from the very core of his being. Rachel stood there with her hand on his shoulder, crying too. Two people bound together by tragedy, finding a moment of shared humanity in the most unlikely of places. Chapter 10. The Aftermath. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking as I dialed 911. The operator answered, and I gave them the address, explained briefly that we needed police and an ambulance, that there had been a kidnapping but the situation was now under control. "They're coming," I told Marcus and Rachel after I hung up. "We probably have 10 minutes, maybe 15. Marcus nodded, wiping his eyes. He looked exhausted, as if the release of all that pent-up emotion had drained every last bit of energy from his body. "What do I do now?" he asked no one in particular. "You tell the truth," Rachel said. She'd wrapped her arms around herself, still unsteady on her feet, but her voice was clear. "All of it. Don't try to minimize what you did, but don't exaggerate it either. Just tell them the truth." "Will you—" Marcus started, then stopped as if unsure he had the right to ask anything of her. "I'll tell them you didn't hurt me," Rachel said. "I'll tell them about Emma, about the accident, about your grief. I'll tell them that you need help, not just punishment, but Marcus." She met his eyes. "I can't promise it will make much difference. What you did was still illegal. It was still wrong." "I know," he said quietly. "I'm ready to face the consequences." In the distance, we could hear sirens. The neighbors' houses were starting to light up, curtains twitching as people peered out to see what the commotion was about. Mrs. Patterson appeared on her porch in a bathrobe. The Johnson twins pressed their faces against an upstairs window. Maple Street, which had been so quiet and oblivious for so long, was about to learn all of our secrets. "David," Marcus said, turning to me, "thank you for caring enough to investigate. For not just calling the police immediately, for giving me a chance to end this the right way." I didn't know what to say to that. Had I done the right thing? By talking to Marcus, by giving him the opportunity to release Rachel voluntarily, had I helped? Or had I risked her life? These were questions I knew I'd be wrestling with for a long time. The sirens grew louder, and red and blue lights began to flash across the garage walls. Car doors slammed. Voices called out, demanding that we come out with our hands visible. The three of us walked out of the garage together, captor, captive, and witness, into the glare of flashlights and drawn weapons. Officers swarmed forward, separating us, asking questions, trying to make sense of the scene. As they led Marcus away in handcuffs, he looked back at Rachel one last time. She met his gaze and nodded. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. An EMT wrapped a blanket around Rachel's shoulders and guided her toward an ambulance. Before she got in, she turned and found me in the crowd. "Thank you," she mouthed. I stood there on Marcus Reed's driveway as police officers secured the garage, as crime scene investigators arrived, as neighbors gathered in.